Horrifying fire at California lithium battery plant sparks calls for new clean energy rules. This is a LA Times article, January 26, 2025, written by Clara Harder, and she's a staff writer there. When a massive fire erupted at one of the world's largest lithium-ion battery storage facilities in Monterey County, it didn't just send plumes of smoke over nearby communities. It cast a pall over the future of California's clean energy industry. The fire at the Moss Landing power plant, which ignited on January 16th, burned for 5 days and ultimately destroyed around 80% of the batteries inside the building. Now, as the smoke clears, Monterey area officials warn that the blaze may be a harbinger as the state increases its reliance on renewable energy, electric vehicles, and other battery-powered devices. I know green is good, but we've got to move slowly. Monterey County Supervisor Glenn Church told that Times, what we're doing with this technology is way ahead of government regulations and ahead of the industry's ability to control it. The fire earlier this month was the fourth at Moss Landing since 2019 and the third at buildings owned by Texas-based Vistra Energy. The plant is off Highway 1, about 18 miles northeast of the city of Monterey. Yeah. And guess what? People evacuated. One particular article I read, I don't know if it's in this one, it was about a doctor. He basically took his entire family and moved them into Monterey proper. My daughter will be, right there at the Presidio, about 15 minutes from where this battery fire was, 15 miles. So there you go. I mean, I don't want to be living around this stuff, but this is what the Manteno residents are faced with. They're going to be living next to that Gotion lithium battery plant that plans on, accelerating its operation. But you know what? There's a God bless the concerned citizens of Manteno and the fight that they have been putting in now for over 18 months. And they've got a great lawyer with them. His name is Robby Dube. You've heard him before, and he joins me now to give us an update on this important case because they just had another filing. Robby, thanks so much for joining me tonight.
Jeannie, thanks for having me on again.
So first of all, maybe just bring the listeners up to speed about what this lawsuit was about initially, and then you can tell us where it stands now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you are very appropriate to be alarmed by what's going on in California because it's exactly what can and I'm afraid will happen in Manteno. So what's happened in Manteno, Illinois, is there's a company called Gotion, Inc., which sounds like an innocuous company. It is not. It is a subsidiary of a Chinese Communist Party company. Its chairman, Chin Li's father, is a member of the Politburo for the Chinese Communist Party. And Gotion, Inc.'s parent company's articles of, their business articles say it is a organ of the Chinese Communist Party. So this company originally went to build a factory in Michigan and had to build lithium-ion batteries, right, for the renewable energy electric cars, right? And then they started to try to build one in Manteno, Illinois, too. Now, what happened is no one knew Gotion was coming. Instead, Governor Pritzker signed a multi-billion-dollar REV agreement with them to funnel a bunch of money to them in exchange for job promises. And the village of Manteno brought it in under a secret name called Project Unity. So without anyone knowing what the company was, a bunch of village officials voted to give them tax abatements, to give them, basically preferential treatment over other businesses. And then they went to rezone a parcel of land that's, less than half of a mile from a preschool by the main elementary school that used to be a Kmart factory. They wanted to rezone it to I-2, Industrial 2, so they could build these lithium-ion batteries. Mm-hmm. And only then did people finally learn that the company coming in was Gotion, which I was already familiar with because of the Michigan case, which I'm on as well. So there was a rezoning hearing which I attended, and citizens voiced a wide range of concerns, environmental and very dangerous, deadly chemicals that are going to be used there, national security with Gotion itself, the secrecy, the dishonesty, all these different things. And I made a presentation about some specific highly toxic chemicals. And they didn't care. They voted unanimously to rezone it. It went to the village board. The village board, all but one, voted to rezone it. And basically, they called their own people ignorant, racist, stupid, opposed to progress, every name in the book you could think of, their own voters, the people they're supposed to represent. So we sued. We sued the village for illegally rezoning this property. And we sued Gotion as a prospective nuisance, saying this plant that you're going to bring in is dangerous and it's going to kill people.
Well, I mean, yeah. And so you went through this whole lawsuit process. You guys have been in court back and forth. And now your recent filing, I know the judge basically told you to consolidate some of the issues, and she threw out a couple of them, but you still have quite the case to deal with, don't you, to throw at them?
We do. So you noted that it's been going on 18 months. That's an extremely long time to be at the stage that we're at, which is frustrating to me. But, the people of Manteno are keeping their spirits high. What happened is Gotion and the village tried to get rid of everything. And the court said, no. They've brought valid claims on all of their claims, except for we had sued the chairman of the rezoning committee itself. And she said, you can't sue him. You need to just sue the village. So
okay.
We took the claim to the village, and we included a lot of information about the Chinese Communist Party connections here. And she said, I don't want any of that. Give me a clean nuisance complaint. So we stripped the Chinese Communist Party aspects from it, and we refiled a new complaint. The village and Gotion moved to dismiss it again. Now, what's interesting is the village, for all intents and purposes, just copied and pasted their last argument, which the court already turned down. But Gotion, they took a different tack. They actually aren't trying to get rid of the nuisance claims at all. They've accepted that those nuisance claims are valid, and they're going to go forward.
Okay.
What they're trying to do, which is great news, right? What they're trying to do is there's a specific Illinois statute that basically allows citizens to sue private landowners when they violate village codes, when their village won't step in. And what it was put in to stop the corrupt Chicago officials who weren't doing anything, right? And so that's called 1165 ILCS 5/111315. Allows citizens to sue directly, and importantly, if they win, they get all their attorney's fees. So that is the one that Gotion is very concerned about. They originally tried to say, you can't do this because we haven't built our plant yet. The court said, yes, they can. You've said these are the chemicals you're going to use. This is what you plan to do. They can sue. Well, now what they did is they had the village put up a temporary occupancy permit that said, we don't think you're going to be using any highly toxic chemicals.
Oh, boy.
In direct response to our lawsuit. And so Gotion is waiving that, saying, well, hold on. The village said we're not going to be breaking any rules, so you can't have a lawsuit. So think about that, Jeannie. What this statute does, it says, if the village isn't enforcing its own rules, you can sue them. And we've said these highly toxic chemicals are banned under the Manteno Code. And the current administration said, no, it's fine. And so Gotion says, well, so long as the village says it's okay, you can't sue us. That's not how the law works, but that's what their argument is. The other aspect of their argument is they're saying, again, it's too soon. You can't sue us because we're not going to violate anything, and we haven't violated anything. On the other side, they're saying, actually, it's too late because you should have appealed this once Chris LaRoque, the building zoning director, I think is the title, made his decision. You should have appealed it right then. Except it wasn't even a public decision, Jeannie. It was a private email sent directly to Gotion, but we're supposed to have known it and known to have appealed it. I mean,
that's the problem with all this stuff. I mean, everything was done behind closed doors with an NDA. Actually, some of that stuff is actually false. Now I've heard that there's emails out there saying that there wasn't an actual NDA for the Manteno mayor who said that he was under an NDA and couldn't disclose it to his people. So, I mean, this story goes much deeper than just the legal issues you're dealing with. But let's kind of stick to more of the legal issues. I mean, I'd love to get into all the details, but that would take like 5 hours. But I mean, as far as Gotion goes, I mean, I know that I thought maybe the Michigan case was dead with them. Or did they actually get to block the Gotion plant up there? And where does Gotion stand in other parts of the country in terms of lawsuits?
So, like I said, I'm representing Green Charter Township in Michigan. What's happened there is Gotion did try to do the same thing with Manteno, but in Michigan, they can recall their elected officials.
And they did.
And so they recalled everyone and brought in citizens who said, we want to know our answers. We want to know what's going on. What they tried to do is they tried to put through a contract that the supervisor signed in secret. After the board approved a draft and the supervisor had private one-on-one negotiations with Gotion and said, I've approved a contract. Well, you can't do that in Michigan. And so the new board said, hey, that's not a valid contract. So Gotion sued the township and said, you have to pass all these laws. You have to legislate to let this plant come in. And they drew a judge who granted a preliminary injunction in favor of Gotion. Now, Jeannie, I see the government every day. It is unbelievably difficult to win a preliminary injunction. It is almost impossible to win it on a contract, and yet somehow Gotion managed to win this. After that, my firm was brought in to handle the appeal to the Sixth Circuit. So that's the court right below the United States Supreme Court, where we raised a bunch of issues saying that this is crazy. For all these various reasons, and let me tell you, I'm not usually defending the government, so it's been a weird position for me, but in this time, these are the people trying to protect their community. So we did all of our briefing, and the Sixth Circuit is going to have argument in Cincinnati on May 8th on whether the injunction stands or not. But as it sits, Gotion doesn't appear to be moving forward in Michigan at all. They are publicly claiming that they're taking, affirmative steps in Illinois, but that's not something that I've seen. Those are the only lawsuits I know about it. But I think with the Trump administration taking away the EV mandates and the EV tax credits, most of the reason Gotion, wanted to be here is now gone. And so I'm not sure if financially it even makes sense for them to keep sticking around and drawing that money.
Okay, well, that was kind of my final question as we go. It was to close out this interview with you. They are buying up the massive amounts of farmland around the initial development. Is this a buffer area, or is this for expansion purposes, or do you think that they do go away? Because I know that Pritzker has not given up on his green energy fantasies. Rivian thinks that it's still going to manufacture some sort of smaller SUV that might need a lithium battery. The state legislature is now wanting grid scale batteries for their solar and wind projects because they know that when the wind and the solar is intermittent, you kind of try and store that energy, even though that's a total boondoggle. I'm just wondering if you think that Gotion is headed into maybe not supplying so much car batteries, but they'll be supplying lithium batteries for other uses in the industrial space and in the grid level generation space.
Well, you're right that Pritzker is not willing to abandon this, nor is Whitmer in Michigan. I think both of them want it to be part of their 2028 campaign. Says, look, I brought green energy to my state, even though my people didn't want it. As far as what Gotion's plan is doing, I mean, you don't buy up farmland to look at it, right? You don't buy land next to your factory to look at it.
Right.
So,
right. I agree.
And what I suspect is going to happen is they are going to buy this land, and they are either going to move to make it I-2 so they can expand the facilities, or they're going to at least hold on to the land and try to sell it for a profit later. And remember, a lot of the money they're using right now, as best as we can tell, is from the subsidies that were given by the government. Well,
yeah, that's my last point. I mean, we already gave them $125 million just months, like literally 6 months after the deal was signed in September. By January 2nd of 2024, they had $125 million of our Illinois tax money. Here's your check. Cut it right to them. Now, there are two other payments in the comptroller's website for $25 million each. There's been one payment. So that's a total of $50 million. There's been one payment of $12,500,000 that I found that she actually paid it out. But they are getting ready without having one battery come out of that damn plant, unless it was imported and then shipped out. They're sitting on $175 million of our money.
Yeah,
so that's what they're using. They're using our money to buy the land. They're using our money to buy land.
That's my suspicion. I mean, until we can get discovery and figure out where all this money's gone, I don't know for sure. But why else is a California company that's parent's company is based in the People's Republic of China buying farmland in Manteno, Illinois, right? And where are they getting the money from? But I think that the last part of your question is, what are they going to do next? I mean, there's kind of only two options: is they pivot to trying to make these batteries that can be used elsewhere. But I think with the No Gotion Act introduced by Congressman Molinar and LaHood and the rest of the
Darren's been really good on that. Darren LaHood. Yep. Mm-hmm.
They've been excellent. I mean, Gotion's options are running out quickly, and I think at least from a national security perspective, Congress is seeing them as an active concern.
Okay.
And so, will Gotion be able to provide these batteries, even if it's able to produce them? I'm not confident they are.
Well, Robby, your lawsuit needs to go forward anyway, regardless, because we have to hold these local officials accountable for the actions that they took, I think wrongful in terms of the zoning issues. That'll all be settled out in court, plus the harm that they're doing, the potential harm from actually locating this thing so close to a residential area. So, Robby, how can regular people help these folks, and support the lawsuit? Because that's the only thing they have an avenue to do right now other than voting these idiots out.
Well, so that last one is probably the most important. Manteno has its elections April 1st. So voting for the people who are actually going to care about the village and protect the village is going to be the most important. I think the candidate, they've formed the Freedom Party. They're the ones who are, going nuts. And they're not just, no, we don't want Gotion. They have a whole range of issues they want to protect their community on and change how their government's done there. So that's going to be most important. And then the organizing plaintiffs, they're concerned citizens of Manteno and then an individual named Brian Kabaka. Concerned citizens of Manteno, you can find them on Facebook. You can find them. They have a website, and they have all the information about how you can financially support them if you find yourself able to do so. It really frustrates me that individual citizens have to take up this fight because their state government and local government won't do it. But I have these kind of lawsuits across the country, and it's just incredible the generosity of people across the United States who are helping people across the country try to fight these things. So if your listeners feel compelled and they feel like they want to join this fight, that's where I'd direct them, is the Concerned Citizens of Manteno's website.
All right. Well, he's Robby Dube. He's with Eklund and Bolin. And I want to really thank you for coming on. And I want to thank you for the work you're doing. Eklund and Blando out of Minnesota. He's the lawyer for the Concerned Citizens of Manteno. Robby, thanks so much for joining me on The Real Story.
Absolutely, Jeannie. Happy to come anytime.
All right. We'll be right back. And we've got a couple callers on the line.